very strict travel bans.
On air, online, and live wherever you need us to be.
Hello, you're watching 6 News on the Hour. I'm Leonardo, Puglisi. The top stories we're following right now. The US shoots down a Chinese spy balloon over the Atlantic Ocean. Beijing expressing its strong dissatisfaction as reports continue of a second balloon. Modest but meaningful, Anthony Albanese says critics of the voice to Parliament are trying to start a culture war as the Greens prepare to announce their formal stance on the upcoming referendum. A community in mourning as a teenage girl is killed in a shark attack in the Swan River south of Perth, believed to be the first fatal incident in the area in 100 years. And One Nation, one of almost a dozen parties set to be deregistered in WA within days. One MP revealing to 6 News he is now entering the new parliamentary year as an independent. Good evening. A so-called Chinese spy balloon that's been seen across the United States has been shot down by the military after a request from President Joe Biden. China has expressed its, quote, strong dissatisfaction at the decision while maintaining it was a weather device, while reports also continue of a second balloon being tracked, this time over Latin America. North American correspondent Wyatt Sharp has the very latest.
It was on Wednesday that President Joe Biden had apparently been wanting to shoot it down. The Pentagon essentially advised against it because of obviously some of the hazards that might create. But it appears as if this has now happened at the direction of the president. And of course, this is interesting because the Republicans often talk about how the Democrats weren't necessarily doing it because they didn't want to go against China in such a drastic way. Well, I think this is really President Biden saying, no, we are willing to stand up to China on such an important front, frankly. And in this case, I mean, it's interesting. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had said on Friday that he was confident that it was a Chinese surveillance balloon. Of course, we know that it is. The foreign ministry in China claimed on Friday as well that the balloon was not what the U.S. was claiming it was. The Chinese foreign ministry claiming that it was, quote, a civilian airship of which was being used for weather research. So they were obviously denying that it was true on their end. But with this now, not being an active threat, you could say, to the United States, it is still something that the United States will need to pay attention to, Leo, because now they're going to need to think, well, why was it, specifically in Montana? And you could get into the logistics of that a little bit and the various skepticism there as to why it was in Montana. Of course, it was in Canada beforehand. But it also just speaks to a bigger issue, Leo, of the relations between Washington and Beijing, and how might that change moving forward, given that something like this has now happened.
They decided, without doing damage to anyone on the ground, they decided that the best time to do that was if it got over water outside within the 12-mile limit. They successfully took it down, and I want to compliment our aviators who did it, and we'll have more to report on this a little later. Thank you.
Mr. President, what did you say about China?
And Wyatt, we've also heard about a second balloon in Latin America. We don't have too much info about that right now, do we?
No, and I mean, whenever something like this happens, it's not, very often that, the Pentagon, for example, will release information because it is, in many cases, a security threat to the safety of the United States. Now, it was just a few days ago, I believe, that someone from the Pentagon was asked whether or not the exact position of balloons of this nature is classified information. And they did get into how, whenever you have something like this, it changes where it is frequently, it changes where it is in the sky, etc. And so that's why they don't necessarily reveal kind of a, minute by minute or hour by hour where it actually is. Of course, you mentioned this is supposedly over Latin America at this time. We don't have a lot of information other than, again, Beijing. They said to the last one that it is, quote, a civilian airship being used for weather research. Unclear what they're saying exactly about this one in particular. But I mean, fair to say that they probably, if they weren't willing to, say or admit what the last one was exactly, that they would be willing to provide any detailed information as to what this one could be.
Wide sharp there. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is gearing up for his upcoming State of the Union address where he will be speaking to Congress. Biden will have the benefit of a Democrat majority Senate for the next 2 years, but in the House, it is the Republicans with control. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has more.
President Biden will deliver his State of the Union address this coming week and is expected to highlight many of his accomplishments while in office, such as his work to combat inflation with the Inflation Reduction Act, as well as his work to lessen gas prices. Many Americans remain optimistic that prices will continue to lessen because everything's so expensive right now. The president is expected to talk about that as well. This is expected to be sort of a shift in tone from the president because we're expecting him to launch his 2024 presidential bid in a short order. So this event is kind of like the beginning stages of that. While he's not expected to say that at his State of the Union address, it's certainly going to have a nod to what's in the future, at least according to political analysts. It's important to note that the president is delivering this speech this year to a different sort of group than last year. That's because there's Republicans who now control the House of Representatives, meaning there's going to be more Republicans in attendance. He'll be delivering this speech to the same group of people who's investigating him and his family's business dealings. Kevin McCarthy, who's the new House Speaker, a Republican House Speaker, will be sitting behind him in a place once held by Nancy Pelosi, at least by last year's count, at this State of the Union last year. So the president's going to have quite a number of changes as he prepares to deliver this historic speech just coming up in a couple of days. I'll continue to monitor the latest from here in the U.S. I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you.
Anthony Albanese has said critics of the Indigenous voice to Parliament are trying to start a culture war. All state and territory leaders, including Liberal Premiers Dominic Perrottet and Jeremy Rockcliffe, are in support. The PM has mentioned the 2021 US Capitol riot and Brazil riot last month while discussing apparent misinformation surrounding the voice, describing the proposal as not radical but modest and meaningful. He's added it will have no effect on sovereignty. The Greens are set to announce their position on the referendum within days. It appears more likely they are going to support it. However, Senator Lydia Thorpe has advised the party she may be voting against it. A community is mourning right now after a 16-year-old girl was killed in a shark attack in the Swan River south of Perth. It is believed to be the first fatal incident in the area in 100 years and follows an attack just 2 years ago. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the latest details.
A community in mourning. A 16-year-old girl killed in a fatal shark attack in the Swan River south of Perth. Police say the girl was with friends on jet skis in North Fremantle and possibly saw dolphins nearby. It's believed she then jumped into the river to swim near them, and that's when the attack happened.
She was with friends on the river. They were on jet skis. There was possibly a pod of dolphins were being seen nearby, and the young female jumped in the water to swim nearby the dolphins.
Authorities have told media that it is unusual for a shark to be that far down the river at that point in time. A witness told WA Today that he and a group of about 6 others also saw dolphins before someone came over on a jet ski and told them to get out of the water. Another witness told the ABC that a man had jumped into the water to try and save the girl after hearing children screaming. It's believed this is the first fatal shark attack in the Swan River in 100 years. A 13-year-old boy was killed in January 1923, while a man managed to survive a bull shark attack in the same area back in 2021. Flowers have now been left at the river as locals remain in shock. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Victorian Premier Dan Andrews has been heckled over COVID-19 vaccine mandates at a press conference in Melbourne. During the presser, a man who did not appear to be part of the media pack asked the Premier about mandates, who responded by saying he was frankly wrong.
I'm neither here to apologise for saving lives. No, I won't. So you got that right. We could agree on that. We can absolutely agree on that. Well, I'm not sure that you're an accredited journalist at a press conference. So happy Pride to you. All the very best. Let me make one thing very clear to you, sir. Vaccines work. That's what you said. And I'm absolutely pro-vaccine. Pro-vaccine, and I'll leave you to... Others can judge who's being stupid at the moment. Science is important. Science is very important. Well, all the best to you. If you want to abuse me, well, you've done a bit of that. Are there any questions?
The Victorian state election was 71 days ago. Keep New South Wales moving forward. That is the campaign slogan reportedly now being used by the coalition as they seek a fourth term in office at next month's state election. The Liberals are facing threats from Labor and Teal independents as Dominic Perrottet aims to stay in office. Political editor Roman McKinnon breaks it all down.
The New South Wales election is fast approaching. It'll happen on the 25th of March, just over a month away. So why not let's take a bit of an analysis into what's going to happen on election day. Let's go through. So there'll be, currently this is 93 seats in the lower house of the New South Wales Legislative Assembly. 46 belong to the LNP, 38 Labor, 6 independent and 3 Greens. Now, to win, the LNP will only need 1 seat, which will be quite interesting to see how this all plays out. Labor will need 9, 41 and 44 for the independents. But here are some 3 seats to watch. First, we've got Kungara. We'll just go to this one. So this is held by the ALP's Chris Minns, which is the Labor leader, who's hoping to become the next Premier, as I mentioned, in just over a month. He's held this seat since 2015, and look at this in the grey box. It's on a margin of 0.1%. As I mentioned, it's an ultra marginal seat, so he may not even win that seat. He's up against independent Troy Stoltz, who has been a whistleblower against the Liberals, so he's up against a Labor. We haven't got a Liberal candidate announced yet. As you can see here, only 2 candidates confirmed so far, but 0.1%. What will happen if Chris Minns loses his seat? He may, or if he loses, he will not become Premier. So he's got to fight for becoming, retaining his seat and becoming the next Premier of New South Wales. East Hills is on the list, 0.1% as well. It's held by the Liberals, the Liberal Wendy Lindsay since 2019. Another ultra-marginal seat, and the Labor candidate was only confirmed on Thursday. So if you kind of want to get a bit of a confidence boost in an election, an early kind of candidacy announcement would be good. The independent here, Wendy Lindsay, up against Kylie Wilkinson for New South Wales Labor. Alrighty, and our third and final seat is Upper Hunter. It was a by-election won by the Nationals in 2021. The old, I believe it was Liberal candidate resigned. So Dave Lazell is the independent. It's located just west of Newcastle on the Central Coast, and we've got 3 candidates confirmed. We've also got an independent, Dave Lazell, as I mentioned.
and Perry Watson held on a margin of 0.6%. Why I wanted to bring this up is because the Nationals' Dave Lizelle will have a very big confidence boost into winning this seat. It was only, 2 years ago since that electorate went to the polls for a by-election. Not that long in politics for elections and things like that. So he will be, obviously it's still a 0.6% margin, so who knows what might happen. And Nationals are very popular in regional areas, especially in New South Wales and also other parts like Victoria and Queensland. But I believe he will have the confidence boost to retain this seat.
One Nation is among almost a dozen parties set to be deregistered by Western Australia's Electoral Commission within days. One Upper House MP, Wilson Tucker from the Daylight Saving Party, now revealing he is entering the new parliamentary year as an independent. National reporter Austin Pollock has the exclusive story.
Almost a dozen parties are right now just days from having their registration cancelled by the Electoral Commission in Western Australia. The Daylight Savings Party, Great Australian Party, Health Australia Party, Liberal Democrats, No Mandatory Vaccination, Pauline Hanson's One Nation, Shooters, Fishers and Farmers, Small Business, Social Alliance, Sustainable Australia and the Western Australia Party could all be deregistered by the WAEC as soon as this Friday. The WAEC also said on their websites party registrations can be cancelled if the party no longer exists, has failed to endorse a candidate in a general election after being registered, or did not lodge an application for a continued registration. And it appears the last reason is why all of these parties are now on the chopping block. Labor, the Liberals, the Greens, the Nationals, the Australian Christians, Animal Justice, Legalised Cannabis, all appear to be fine, with the majority of those parties having some form of representation in the Parliament. Of those 11 parties listed before, only Daylight Savings has had an MP in the upper house, being Wilson Tucker, elected on preferences with just 98 primary votes back in 2021. Tucker spoke exclusively to 6 News, revealing he is now entering the new parliamentary year as an independent, and the future of the party he formed back in 2016 is now unclear.
I believe I'll start the 2023 term, which is in a couple of weeks, as an independent. And look, there is a sort of a financial and a sort of resource burden put on parties, which has made it sort of untenable for a lot of the minor guys who don't have a lot of funds to throw around to actually sort of hit this registration bar and also contest the election. So I think it's going to be about sort of $20,000, a $20,000 cost to contest the next state election in 2025. Which is significant. It's not significant if you're talking about, Labor Party, which received about $2 million, I think, in the last election from donations. But if you're talking about a grassroots minor party, it is a sizable amount of money. So the Daylight Party has taken sort of a back step for now, sort of reassessing the goals. And look, never say never. We might sort of, you might see Daylight Party sort of coming through and rising again in the near future. But for now, I'll continue to serve as independent. I'll say that it's over for now, but certainly in the future, we can use the existing member base and we can register. There is a financial sort of impost when it comes to contesting the 2025 state election. But right now, it's sort of keeping all options on the table and happy to continue as an independent, because as an honor as it is to sort of represent the Daylight Saving Party, I do get sort of tied with that brush, and people sort of think I'm this one-trick pony that is only talking about daylight saving, and it is sort of difficult to sort of keep flogging that horse for 4 years and talking about that single issue.
Now, it's important to note here that a party being deregistered does not necessarily mean the party is completely dead. Only a few months ago, the United Australia Party lost registration at a federal level, but Senator Ralph Babbitt still represents the UAP. Tucker confirmed to 6 News that the DSP's social media and website will remain active ahead of the 2025 state election. It should also be noted that this only affects registration for the state elections in WA, not in any other state, territory, or at a federal level.
And next month, 6 News will be presenting a special report 2 years on from WA Labor's landslide victory and the party gaining that double majority, effectively giving them total control of the state's parliament. That will be Monday night, March 13, live right here on 6 News. Well, according to Guinness World Records, this is the world's oldest dog. Bobby has broken an almost century-old record to claim the title. Leonardo Costa, his owner in Portugal, has spoken to media about the record.
We could name 3 or 4 factors, but living in the countryside next to agriculture, nature, without a doubt, in my opinion, is one of the 3 main factors to explain Bobby's longevity. The fact that he's never been chained in his life, was never tied to a chain or caged. Bobby has never been imprisoned, and that feeling of freedom has been an important factor. And of course our love and affection throughout his life has also helped. But he is the builder of this deed.
Bobby, as of today, is 30 years and 270 days old. Nazavan and Melly in Perth with look what's making news right now on WAMN News.
Thank you, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, waging war against racism. Community leaders bestow anti-racism policy responsibility on new Liberal leader Libby Mettam. A WAMN News exclusive.
A greener future. Plastic takeaway food containers to be banned in Western Australia.
2 men are wanted over a smash and grab jewellery robbery in Armidale.
Peter Kennedy rates Libby Mettam's media performance, and later Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Changing pace now to tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country, and we have relatively sunny conditions nationwide. Brisbane, the heat continues, 31 degrees, partly cloudy in Sydney and Canberra, tops of 26 and 29 respectively there. 21 in Melbourne, down in Hobart it'll be mostly the same though, a bit of a warmer high of 23. Sunny in Adelaide, 28, getting up to 34 in Alice Springs. Over in the west it'll be 27 in Perth, and in Darwin a warm top of 32. A reminder of the top stories we're following on 6 News this hour, and a so-called Chinese spy balloon that's been seen across the United States has been shot down by the military. China has expressed its strong dissatisfaction at the decision, reports continuing of a second balloon also being tracked, this time over Latin America. And Anthony Albanese has said critics of the Indigenous voice to Parliament are trying to start a culture war. The PM has described the proposal as not radical but modest and meaningful. He has added it will have no effect on sovereignty. And that is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, 6newsau.com, and on social media. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. More news coverage continues right after this. For now though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.
When big news breaks.
It pains me to announce that I have no option but to resign from the office of Premier.
Reimpose stage 3 stay-at-home restrictions effective from midnight tomorrow night.
6 News is there for you.
This was a scene of what some are describing as almost a riot, violent confrontations with police.